Welcome to this series of tips on web services. We'll discuss different tips related to RESTful web services, SOAP web services, and microservices as well. All the tips we would look at are on our GitHub repository in 28 minutes tips database. You have a wide range of tips in here. In this tip, we'll talk about one of the most important documentation formats for RESTful web services, Swagger. Today, Swagger is really a popular format supported by wide range of organizations and used by a wide range of organizations as well. I like Swagger a lot. We use Swagger to document all our RESTful APIs, and in this tip, let's look in depth at Swagger. We'll look at a couple of things. One is the Swagger documentation itself, and also the other thing is something called Swagger UI, which is kind of a UI where you can look at your Swagger documentation in more a visually pleasing way. So let's open our Swagger JSON for one of the recent services that we created. When you look at the Swagger documentation at a high level, it looks very similar to how a WSDL is, right? So a WSDL or Swagger are used to define your services. You are expected to define where your service is hosted, what is the path at which your service is hosted, and also you need to tell what kind of request do you accept, what kind of response do you produce, and also what are the different resources that are present. So if you look at this specific resource, this specific API, it's exposing a lot of resources. So you have resources like users, person, JPA users, and things like that. When you look at the Swagger documentation, you'd be able to quickly understand what are the resources that are present, what are the operations that are present, and also what are the different details of each operation. So if you look at the users, you can see that it supports two operations, get and post. And for get, you can see it allows a consumes of XML and JSON. It produces XML JSON as well. And the response schema is of the type user, and also it defines what are the different response statuses that are possible: 200, 401, 404, 403, 404, different response statuses and the schemas of them as well. So if you look at the response here, it says array of user. Where is user defined? User is part of the definitions down at the bottom. So you can see the definition of the user in here. So the user is date time, format is date time, and a birth date should not be in the past. So it has birth date, ID, name, and post. And also you can see description about each one of them. One of the important things is, as you can see, Swagger is completely independent of the technology you would use to implement your RESTful web service. There is nothing in Swagger that is customized or related to a specific technology. So this is basic JSON which you use to define your services. Swagger allows you to define your resources, what are the different response types, what are the different content, what is the definition of the content that is present as part of your response type as well. One more great tool I really like about Swagger is something called a Swagger UI. So here I'm choosing the default. This is the API which we looked at earlier, so API docs, and I'm looking at now in a more visually pleasing way. So when we come to the home page, it shows the list of resources that are present, and also I can see the list of operations. So I can see that the operations which are present that are defined as part of this user resource are /users, get to /users, post to /users, delete to a specific user, delete a specific user, and get the details of a specific user. And when I click on this, you can see all the details about it. So when I try and get details of a specific user, this is the format I would get the response back. I would get a birth date ID. I'm using Hetios, so I'm getting the links back, related links back. And I would also get the name and the post that the user made. You can see also the different things that are present in here. I can also try and execute a sample request. Let's say I would try and execute a request with ID 1. And you can see what response comes back. So you can see that there is a response that is coming back. So Swagger UI shows the documentation. It helps you to test the services and a lot of different stuff. The great thing about Swagger is there is a lot of great tooling around it. So whenever I implement RESTful web services using This is one of the services that we implemented using Spring Boot. There's a Swagger plugin which is present, which would help us to easily generate the documentation for this service in the Swagger format. So you have support whether you want to do a contract first approach, whether you want to do a code first approach. There is support in Swagger for all that kind of stuff. I really found Swagger a great way of documenting your RESTful web services. Until the next tip, bye bye. Do not forget to check out our tips database for more tips on a wide range of topics. Until I see you in another In 28 Minutes video, here's bye from the team here at In 28 Minutes.